safe and removed. You never get hung up. Never.
I'm really honored to be here. Thanks to the committee. Thank you, Jesse. Everybody has worked so hard. We're tired, but I'm going to make you laugh. And I am honored to be here in Flagstaff. What can I say? Thank you to my husband, Daniel Zielinski, for driving me here. Thank you to Monica and Jeff for being such good friends. Friends old and new. I'm going to read from my book, The King and Queen of Comezón. A comezón is literally an itch in Spanish, comezón. But it also means a longing that you can never satisfy, an untold desire, or maybe told, that will never be fulfilled. And my protagonist, it's a short piece, is an elder man who's facing the last fiestas of his life. He is an MC for an incredible fiesta that takes place every year in this small town of Comezón, New Mexico. It's set on the border, so this is a border love story. And I'd like to introduce Arnulfo P. Olivares. And some of you may know what the P stands for. Pendejo. And if you don't know that word, talk to me afterwards. Arnulfo P. Olivares, his wife is in the hospital in this particular scene. She's ill. She is going to recover. But he happens to wander into a back house behind the house that they call La Tumbita, the little tomb. And he keeps his things back there. The family maid and cook, Isa Lugo, also has a space back there. And he forgets. He's a little disordered. His wife is not there. Isa has come back from Mass, and she's taking her usual Sunday bath. And so Arnulfo happens to go into La Tumbita, and he sees his housekeeper naked, and she's taking a bath. This is a chapter called The Encounter. Arnulfo opened the door and went into La Tumbita. He felt as if somehow his space had been invaded, and the discontent propelled him forward, an aggrieved lover, someone who is owed. Isa was in her tub at the back of La Tumbita, taking her Sunday bath. He'd forgotten that this was her special time, and it startled him when he saw her splayed out, eyes closed in her tinita, her little tub, without a care in the world, little bubbles coming up from around where her little panochita would be, open and wet. Arnulfo hadn't realized how youthful and supple Isa's body would be. But of course it had to be. She was a hardworking woman, and hers was not the artificial exercise of the well-off. Oh, no, 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 no. And he stood a ways from Isa, who sat in her tub, soaping herself, a white wash rag moving over her dark brown body, so soft it looked, so vulnerable, and her eyes were closed. She hadn't heard him come in, and for a moment he said nothing but merely looked at her. Suddenly she felt a presence, and she opened her eyes. She said nothing but sat there eyeing him with malice, and her look froze him. He moved toward her a little. Maybe, no, not at all, but she took it to mean that he desired her. And, well, he wasn't sure. He wasn't sure if he did or not. He was so startled to see her there just like that, without shame, and so completely herself. And if he did move toward her, which he didn't think he had, did he? Maybe he had. I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe he had that thought. Maybe he did feel back there for a moment. Yes, maybe he couldn't say. Maybe he did. Maybe he did. He could. And of course, Esau rebuffed him. She had to defend her honor. How dare you, and all that. Nothing was ever said. And Doña Emilia, his wife, was in the hospital. How dare he think? And yet, if there ever was a time, why should there be a time? Yes, why should there be a time? She stood up in the tub reserved for cleaning her hot chile, in such an overheated state that the water that had previously beaded on her face and softened flesh dried up immediately and left her without any trace of moisture. She had the cold, piercing eyes of a raptor, and she could have, as she would have, seized him and torn his flesh. And frankly, he wished she could. Yes. He was tired, and there was surely one way to leave this earth, in a state of accepted abandon, the way a deer resigns itself to a bear or an antelope to a lion, eaten up, eaten away, eaten down, and then gone. Arnulfo backed up, mumbling something under his breath, a faraway body-inverted sound of surrender and unease. It sounded like a moan, except he was so terrified about seeing her standing there in her tinita and her all too solid flesh, all 5 seemingly enormous feet of her, looking so fierce and remote, but decidedly female, with the most enormous mound of female fur on her woman hill, that he moved backward in sheer fear and respect, and he wanted to touch her. Yes, he did. He wanted to touch that dark pelt. It was like a drenched animal. Yes, hairs tilted down and resting on her thighs, but no, he knew that his touch would defile her, and thank God, that she was stronger than he would ever be, and she rebuffed him with a hard and heavy look. And he looked one more time. And his look was one of childlike wanting. He wanted to suck on the large brown teats, those breasts. He could taste their salt and sandy grit. And then he wanted to bury his face in her woman's face, smelling that thick and earth and mud smell of a mature woman. Yes, he knew that smell. He would then fall asleep up a baby boy, the little boy that he was, her rough, knowing hands patting his thinning hair, yellow brownish hair, and then his little sad boy parts, cooing to him as she began, and then quietly sing the song one sent to troubled children late at night when most of the world was asleep. Cuckoo, mi niñito, cuckoo. But of course, she wouldn't accept it. He knew that, but he was Arnulfo P. Olivares, y tenía que darle el try. Yes, he had to give it the try. Ese pinche try this, try that. His life had been one of tries. And she, because she knew who she was, Monica, she sat down again without a hint of awkwardness or shame or embarrassment, and she farted loudly in the tub. The woman knew how to let a pedo fly. Yes. And the air bubbled up and spread out to the far ends, and La Tumbita fanning the air with the brown and known fragrance of the familiar chile, frijoles. And what was that? Liver? Yes, they had had liver and onions the day before, and it was a good meal. Oh, it was. Now revisited. Yes. The smell, it permeated the room with the aroma of the dark tubings and indentations of a woman's body. It was profoundly meaty, that giant and protracted pedo of Isa's, and he was impressed and at the same time aroused. If it can be said that a woman's prodigious fart can arouse a man, likely it was her ability to feel no shame. It was both a relief to him and also it terrified him. She was more man than he would ever be. And both of them knew it. Yes, why had he not ever noticed her before? Time wasted, and now it was too late. Or was it? Was it too late? He could hear and see the little bubbles rising up as she slid her body down in the tub, where she farted again. Ay, Dios mío. This time with a long, whiny brain, followed by a quick honk of a fart that rippled downward and waterward and beaded the air with its little trail of grass. And she lay back, her head on the backboard, and she closed her eyes, and she took the little white wash rag previously placed at the back of her neck, that place of power, the spinal cord and entrance of both light and dark intention, and she swabbed her head. Yes, she did. And then she submerged the toallita, the little rag, and she placed it between her legs like a bandage of cloth. She didn't want him. Nah, she didn't need him. She didn't care about him. And this is what she showed him when she moaned with that cloth between her thighs, her pubic hair pooling up and waving in the warm water, and then floating back and forth like the soft reeds against the shore where she luxuriated. A woman in her flesh. And when he was at the door, still peering at her because he could not believe how strong she was, she winked at him, and that little winito, yes, that spirit eye, waved back, that cockeyed little left eye of hers. What did it say? He wanted to believe that she gave him hope. Or maybe he was deluding himself with that imagined look, and he didn't know what the truth of it was. At that moment, he just knew that she, at that moment, wasn't telling him yes or no. And that was the story of his life. All his life he had been trying this or that, savoring this or that. He was a man jodido from his first breath to probably his last. And he and everyone knew it. He could end his life. He had the gun to do it, but those times came and went, and then he felt his hot gancho and felt that terrible small hope. Yes, too many men's penises have kept them going for too long, overextending their stay, and his fate was the same. But when he was in Mexico, he was the master of ceremonies. The fiesta could not begin without him. Arnulfo P. Olivares, master of ceremonies, el encargado, the man in charge. He moved away and remembered who he was. Yo mando aquí. Yo mando aquí. Yo mando aquí. I am in charge. Yo mando aquí. And please don't forget it. He would show Isa who she was someday, and she would never look at him again the way she looked at him with pity and rage. Oh, he would show her. Indian, old Indian with that yowling darkness of the lost races of humankind churning up, Mexicana laying waste to his will, and he would show her who he was, and she would beg him for his touch, and he would leave her wanting for more. Ay, who was he kidding? She was just an old acne-scarred woman with a dark nest. And who was he? Once a stately predatory bird of old, now a raving magpie. Damn her flesh, damn her living haughtiness that seeped through his skin and made him back out of La Tumbita in shame and in disgrace. He smelled bad, like a small, dark animal that had just shit on himself. Oh, he hated her. He hated her, and someday he would show her how much. But for now, just for now, she had won. Gracias. Thank you. Gracias.